I want to get to the Heisman Trophy because a couple weeks ago on this show, I brought up that Julian Sayin was creeping up the board, and I said, "Oh man, I don't really know about that." And you quickly said, "Look at his numbers. His numbers are tremendous." And right now, we're sitting at almost a dead heat between those two for the Heisman Trophy. Ty Simpson's lurking a little bit behind. He's got opportunities against Oklahoma this weekend, but Julian Sayin's at plus 180 and Fernando Mendoza's at plus 185. And I know there was a Heisman moment, if you will, on Saturday from Fernando Mendoza on an incredible game-winning drive, albeit as a 2-touchdown underdog, but still game-winning drive to get that victory. But our buddy Brad Powers pointed this out regarding Julian Sayin. He is number 1 in QBR, number 1 in passer rating, number 1 in completion percentage, and as he points out, 8% better than anyone else, number 1 in Pro Football Focus pass grade and offensive grade, and number 2 in yards per attempt, only behind C.J. Carr. So I know that Gus Johnson, while he was losing his voice, said, give him the Heisman Trophy now. They were very much on the about to lose to a Penn State team that was a 2-touchdown home underdog. And I'm not trying to dispel Fernando Mendoza, but you pointed it out a couple weeks ago. We are not talking enough about Julian Sayin and the season he is having at Ohio State.
Well, I think we're not talking about it enough for a couple reasons. One, because it's Ohio State, right? I mean, they were going to be a favorite over everybody throughout the course of the season. And Sayin didn't really do anything in their marquee game against Texas. Now, to me, that wasn't his fault. That was more about the play calling and Ryan Day and Brian Hartline just being way too conservative in that one. Also, the wide receivers, right? When you have Jeremiah Smith, like, people are going to be like, well, yeah, of course you're going to look good. And of course, Cardell Tate didn't play in the game against Purdue, but he's having a big season too. So it's kind of a lot of things, right, that are sort of going against Julian Sayin. But when you brought him up, the reason why I said we need to look at his numbers is because Ohio State can't run the football. I mean, they are not running it to the degree that they usually do, 4.5 yards per carry, still have 16 rushing touchdowns. A lot of them are in very, very short yardage situations. They had trouble running the football against Purdue. Purdue's a pretty good run defense, all things considered, because their pass defense is not good at all. But Ohio State can't really run the football. So they've been using Sayin a lot as an extension of the run because he's such a high efficiency quarterback in terms of completing his throws, makes a lot of smart decisions. The offensive line is playing really, really well. So, for Sayin, like, people are going to look at it and say, well, he's got all these things going for him, right? Like, name a wide receiver. Ask some, casual college football fan to name a wide receiver on Indiana's team.
Well,
up until Saturday, I couldn't name one until Omar Cooper did what he did. So, I consider myself a, pretty well-versed college football fan. But that's the thing, right? Sayin has maybe the best offensive player in the country in Jeremiah Smith. He's got this elite level team around him. And I think it's just still really hard for people to wrap their heads around the idea that Indiana is an elite football team. So, I think that Sayin's not getting talked about enough for a variety of different reasons. But look, I mean, he is the reason why Ohio State, the defense too, but he is the reason why Ohio State's been blowing pretty much everybody out this season, is because they can't run. They're not using the run really to salt games away. They just let Sayin keep throwing 6-7 yard passes and maybe the wide receiver breaks it. And the dude just makes every correct decision, it feels like. So the other thing about Ohio State that I think people aren't really talking about enough is, like, they rotated a bunch of guys in that game against Purdue. They showed basically nothing early on in the season out of the playbook. They're basically just treating the regular season like it's spring training or something like that, where they know their season starts when the college football playoff begins. So, like, they're not burning anybody out. They're rotating a bunch of guys around. The snap counts are lower. Sayin's doing a lot of easy pitch and catch, probably some vanilla route concepts, stuff like that. They're holding a ton back right now. And I think that's something people are going to have to keep in mind when they do meet Indiana in the Big Ten title game.
Well, I mean, you look at Ohio State and they I know they didn't want to lose to Michigan last year, but it was kind of the perfect situation. And they hit their stride in the playoff, and now they're 9-0. First time this year they didn't cover a game against Purdue with that late touchdown by the Boilermakers. So they're 7-1-1 ATS this year. They have UCLA and Rutgers at home the next 2 weeks where they're going to be enormous favorites. Obviously, the Michigan game means a ton to the fan base and to that program. You don't want to make it 5 years in a row with a loss to Michigan. And then you've got the showdown in Indianapolis, which, with the new rules in the college football playoff, Adam, I'm so curious to see how that game is played. Are they just going to play their asses off? I would hope so. You're going to get a number 1 versus number 2 matchup, assuming chalk holds over the next couple of weeks with Indiana and Ohio State. Indiana, by the way, they got their scare. They are not going to get scared. Home to Wisconsin and then Purdue on the road to wrap up the season, where they might try to score 1 million points like they did last year. So, yeah, I'd be curious to see how that game is played out. I know the look-ahead line shifted a little bit based off of last weekend. It was 3.5. FanDuel now has it up to 5.5. But it looks like we have 12-0 versus 12-0, and the Heisman Trophy very well could be on the line. I think that's the question, Adam, I want to pose. Is the Heisman Trophy as simple enough the winner of the Big Ten championship, or does Ty Simpson and or Marcel Reed have a shot? Because it seems like those 4 and then everybody else, right? Diego Pavia is way down. Jeremiah Love is way down. To me, it feels like those 4 teams, their quarterbacks seemingly are the only option for the Heisman Trophy this year.
I mean, I think it's got to be between Sayin and Mendoza at this point, right? Because, as you said, I mean, both teams should go into the Big Ten championship game at 12-0. I mean, if Ohio State loses to Michigan again, I'm going to be absolutely furious. Which would make it for an interesting thing, right? Because then all of a sudden Michigan's very much in the college football playoff discussion.
100%.
That probably would make it, to be honest with you.
Look, the number 1 team. No, I mean, that's a pretty wild scenario. And I see we have a little corner box for those who can't see us. Wyatt, our producer, is a Michigan fan. His little head popped up over there, shaking his head. It is true, though. If Michigan beats Ohio State, they're going to be a 2-loss team with the best win in the country, right? Mm-hmm. So that's going to be quite a situation. A lot in the Big Ten is going to get figured out. Oregon, I'll give them credit, gutsy win on the road and that slop over the weekend, but they still have USC. Washington game maybe doesn't look as weird, but that's a rivalry game on the road, final week of the season after Washington lays an egg against Wisconsin. So, yeah, the playoff, there's still a lot of wackiness that can unfold with some playoff opportunities out there, but Ty Simpson plays Oklahoma this weekend, Adam. Could he put up gaudy numbers? I suppose. Oklahoma's defense is really good, so if he puts up a big number, then they beat A&M in the championship game of the SEC, he could get into it, but it does feel like right now the odds are accurate where those two, Mendoza and Sayin, are the front runners, and they should be.
By the way, speaking of teams that can't run the football, Alabama's only averaging 3.5 yards a carry this season, which is just mind-blowing to me. And maybe Simpson's not getting talked about enough for what he's been doing to kind of drag this offense along. Marcel Reed doesn't have the numbers. Like 7-1 is a bad price on him. There's absolutely no way I would look at that. It's a 3-horse race. And look, if he goes out there and puts up numbers against Oklahoma, he's going to tighten this race a little bit. There's no question about that to me. Even if Sayin and Mendoza play well the rest of the way, this is an Alabama team that I think we kind of talked about this like 2 months ago when Alabama beat Georgia and kind of seemed like they were starting to roll a little bit. We're going to look back at the Florida State game, and it's going to be one of the most what the hell happened here games of the season. That's precisely what it looks like right now for this team. I honestly think they win and cover against Oklahoma, and I think they're going to beat Auburn handily in the Iron Bowl. Simpson's got a shot, but at 4-1, under 4-1, I don't think it's a good enough shot for me to take that price.